Welcome to this Java Break with BASIS. My name is Nico Spence. I'm the Chairman and CEO of BASIS International, and today we're going to look at the newest BBX. We'll talk about what's in it for me, in other words, what's in it for you. So on Friday, the 11th of the 11th of the 11th, we released BBJ 11.11, the latest of the BBX generations. So let's look at our agenda. We're going to do a recap of the complete BASIS application toolset, the language BBJ, the rapid application development tool Barista, and we'll touch on some system administration features, some new features that we've added in BBJ 11.11. We'll review quickly the BASIS utilities, part of what's in it for you, and we'll have a look at the ERP building blocks, Addon software by Barista. And then we'll look at some detail of the newest BBX, BBJ 11.11. We'll have a look at a demonstration of a couple of the highlighted features of BBJ 11.11. Then finally we'll summarize the BASIS advantage as we see it and take your questions. So let's look at a recap of the BASIS toolset. It's a complete technology stack: BBJ, IPv6 compliant, Barista, the rapid application development tool, and then as a real foundation for your business applications, we have the Addon software ERP building blocks. So let's first recap on BBJ. BBJ is a business basic on Java and HTML5, so that you can generate code that runs on a Java desktop environment as well as in a browser. If there's ever a time that it can be said that BASIS is delivering future-proof solutions, look no further than our browser user interface. Who would have thought many years ago that you would have had the capability of writing your code once and deploying it on the desktop environment as well as in a browser, on a mobile device, or anywhere where you may wish to run your application. We've given you three-tier architecture for maximum flexibility, fits into any of your development choices, desktop applications, browser-based solutions. The hardware and operating system retains that platform independence, the real core behind BASIS's original foundation. No need to adapt your application to target a specific operating system. BBJ runs everywhere. The browser user interface is the truly groundbreaking technology for your development. Implemented with the Google Web Toolkit, it cross-compiles BBJ into JavaScript and HTML5 for mobile devices or desktop browsers. The JavaScript works across all major browsers and platforms as long as there's a modern JavaScript engine. It inherits the look and feel of the browser. So a great example of taking older business basic code is the old _amort program. And we recently took that _amort program and reworked it into a iPad type application for calculating mortgage payments. So if you have a chance, go and have a look at that in our buoy showcase on our homepage. And we can now truly say that we develop once and run everywhere. From a Windows desktop environment, we can see over here on the right hand side, we've seen our little customer maintenance program running in Windows. The next screenshot shows that same application running on the Apple Mac in Aqua. Then the next one shows the same application again, but now running in a Chrome browser on a desktop. But what happens if you want to go mobile? No problem. That same application can render on an Apple iPhone. So we have two levels of abstraction when we're looking at generating code. Firstly, writing handcrafted code with BBJ, or secondly, using the rapid application development environment Barista. The first level of abstraction is to write our code in BBJ. We write code-centric business logic in a modern, object-oriented programming language. We create forms in the Visual Form Designer and add event-driven logic there too. BASIS tools support you in efficient and effective coding, and you can augment your code with Java libraries or BASIS-supplied utilities, more about which I'll touch on later. In the rapid application development world, we can create forms, grids, and queries based on any data table with only a couple of mouse clicks. Truly data dictionary-based rapid application development tool. And we can enhance these forms with true business logic in BBJ and Java via the core point code logic. We deliver full three-tier architected solutions from the application server, the database server, and then the client. BASIS system administration has been augmented with the Jetty web server for deployment ease. So that's included with every BBJ install, and the use cases for the web server are multifold. Firstly, BUI applications can now be served up from the Jetty web server. You can serve up web services to third-party applications. And you can run and launch your desktop apps via Web Start. And new to BBJ 11 is the homepage concept, whereby we can have a homepage within our web server that can be used to reference all sorts of information relating to your application in your environment. We also have a support/error page. So should there be an error from the web server, you can redirect it to an error page that you can populate yourself. So BBJ ships with some defaults set up in the home pages and the error pages, but you can override those defaults. Let's talk more about some of those basis building blocks. Really a good example of what's in it for you in the latest version of BBJ 11. So we give you sample code, utilities, and application building blocks. So some examples thereof would be emailing, faxing, language translations, geolocation determination, signature capture on mobile devices, patch deployment with our BASIS update service. That's a web-based service. We provide the source code to you for you to use with your patch deployment. We give you integration with WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, designed reports with the iReport and the BB Jasper integration points, Google Doc integration, ability to store your documents up in the Google Doc cloud, a customizable installer, so you can install your own applications after the install of your BASIS environment. And then, of course, probably the biggest feature that we added with BBJ 11 is the data replication, all provided as part of the BBJ and BBX ecosystem. And of course, all of these come to you at no additional cost. Let's talk a little bit about add-on software by Barista. What's the logic and the strategy behind that? Really, we wanted to give you the building blocks for you to go and create your vertical market solutions. So we don't want you to have to go and reinvent the wheel. Who wants to go out and write another general ledger application at this stage? So use our core modules, remain focused on your vertical, and contribute your features for product credits if you see benefit in doing so for both your application and of course for the greater good of the community. It's a very low risk path. Addon Software has more than 25 years of experience built into the solution, and now it's available in the cloud. We also have attached to the Addon Software concept a unique commercial open source partnership program. And so we'd invite you to contact us to find out more about how you can participate in this environment. So let's talk about some of the newest BBX features in BBJ 11.11. So we'll talk about the 12.0 preview features. As you are probably aware, with our various maintenance releases, we try and seed those maintenance releases with features that will be fully supported in the next evolution of our product. So we have the new IDE Dialog Wizard, and I'll go into some more detail about that in a minute and show you a demonstration thereof. And we also have some Barista enhancements. The print at report types that many of you may have in your existing applications, you can now integrate into Barista's document output subsystem. So Barista's document output subsystem has a tremendous number of features, and you can now leverage those features from your legacy application. We also have new powerful database views and new replace SQL syntax. So instead of doing an insert, you can do a replace, which would obviously applies to the situation where you would have an existing record and you would wish to replace that. We also have some significant performance enhancements to BBJ 11.11, and I'll touch on more of what those may be and how they may affect your application, what's in the BBJ 11.11 for you. Let's firstly look at the new IDE Dialog Wizard. It's an alternative to App Builder. It generates a custom dialog class from a resource file. It automatically generates all the callbacks and method stubs. So as you might expect, it's fully object-oriented. It preserves your developer code changes from previous iterations of the Dialog Wizard. So you can go and make your customizations after the Dialog Wizard is complete, and then you can go back and rerun the Dialog Wizard, say deciding to respond to additional events that are generated from the form. Or if you add additional components to the form, additional controls, you can then go through a second iteration and it will preserve those previous code changes that you've implemented. You also have the option of implementing automatic Barista MDI callback plumbing, so that any code that you decide to write with the IDE Dialog Wizard can be implemented within the Barista framework and link into the callbacks to the menus in the Barista MDI. The new IDE Dialog Wizard incorporates an auto-testing launcher for both GUI on the desktop or BUI testing of your resulting application. It also outputs Java doc-like documentation, so it really can assist dramatically in terms of creating the documentation for your completed project. Let's have a look at a demonstration of the IDE Dialog Wizard in action. So here we are in the IDE. We've used the form builder to just add two controls, a button and an import E control. And let's now go and right click on our resource file and launch the Dialog Wizard. We're going to select a couple of controls, the form itself, and we look at the close event, and on the button we'll look at the button push event. We want to respond to those two. And now we can actually set up the integration points if we wanted to something like the Barista MDI controls for the menu. We're not going to do this for this simple example. It's now generated a demo program, and there it is, and it's got all the stubs for the various methods. And we're going to go to the button push method, and let's add a little dialog box, a little message box that will get the contents of the input E and then display them in the message box. So we now run the code, and here we have the choice to either test it in GUI. So we're putting 1, 2, 3 and see it works as we expect, and then we can test it again, and this time test it in BUI. And just like that, it's registered the BUI application, and the Jetty web server is serving it up. So just like that, we're able to generate and test some sample code in both SysGUI as well as in BUI. We look forward to seeing your feedback as you start taking advantage of our new IDE Dialog Wizard in your projects. Right, now let's look at some Barista enhancements. We have the query definition system. We actually have a previous Java break that we covered the query definition and the one-step export to dockout from any query, so we'd encourage you to go and look at those. We've also added some further security enhancements in this release of BBJ 11.11 and dockout enhancements. So let's firstly look at the Barista query definition system. There's a query wizard or handcrafted SQL to create your query definition. It allows you access to multiple tables, including virtual tables from either a store procedure or from the new views. You can apply filters to the result set, and you can create calculated columns that are dependent upon the existing columns in your result set. You can create totals of the existing columns, and you can sort on multiple columns. So for example, sort first on surname or last name and then on first name. So you can sort on multiple columns in the new queries. And you can easily output the query to a report. So this is what the screenshot looks like. Down here we have our query definition in the background, and here when we test it and run it, we see we have this new WYSIWYG type environment where we can see the resultant grid, and down below we can add our various filters on columns. So we have new capabilities within that filter wizard. So we'd encourage you to have a look at those within the Barista application code. The other feature we showed in the previous Java break was the ability to export records from an inquiry directly to a PDF or an XLS or XML type file format. In this release, we've added Barista security enhancements. We've given you permissions to submenus, not just main menu items, but to submenu items. We've also introduced permissions to print functions. And then we've expanded and completed the last of the auditing on any of the data, both additions, deletions, and modifications. And document output enhancements that we've put in place is we've given you the ability to define a document name format by utilizing tokens. So tokens relating to the username, for example, can be prefixed into the resultant name of the document. Automatic archiving of all documents is now part of the document output subsystem, and we have default document group definitions. And we have a document processing queue. The processing queue is configurable as a background process that monitors the contents of the queue, and you can streamline entry options for adding documents to the processing queue. There's a document queue object for creating records, and there's a process monitor that allows you to view the status and you have access to a history archive of all processed documents. But probably one of the most exciting new features that we've made available in BBJ 11.11 for you to preview is the new document output object. That allows developers to create documents outside of Barista and process them through the dockout subsystem. So now the dockout subsystem is available to you with your legacy apps. So if you have any reports that might do a print at type statement, you can now redirect those to populate a vector and then call the dockout subsystem. Your resultant output can be PDF, fax, email, XML, XLS, Google Docs, CSV, text, etc. And those will all be archived in the document output subsystem. So a great benefit of having this set of utilities, of building blocks to add to your existing application code. And of course, if you haven't yet made the move from Pro 5 or Visual Pro 5 to BBJ, you can always xcall this functionality from within Pro 5 or Visual Pro 5. Here's an example of what a dockout object report would look like. Let me hand over to Sam Velopis to take you through an example of the new dockout object being called from a standard BBJ program.
The topic of this segment is the new Barista document output object. This new object provides a way for developers to create Barista document output reports and display them in standalone mode outside of the Barista MDI. Our sample program will take information from the Barista examples item file and create an item report. This sample program consists of 6 separate sections. The first section gets the new document object. The second section opens the examples item file and defines the template. The third section sets our security information for our report: user ID, password, working firm, and user language. The fourth section creates the report information, items such as document ID, title, report headings, and the 5 columns, in this case, necessary for the report. The fifth section is our output loop. It uses a vector to store the information. We use a while when loop to loop through the item file and place items into the vector. The last section takes that output vector and sets it into the document output object and then processes the report. When we execute this program, the information is retrieved, sent to the dockout system, where the report is formatted, archived, and displayed in the report viewer. From this point, we have the options normally available to all reports sent through the Barista dockout system. We can select our document output column adjustment and adjust columns as necessary. We can select our document print settings and adjust things such as document margins, orientation, font size, and which document formats will be part of the standard output for this specific report. We can also select our document output selection form, which will allow us to, on demand, select any of the following types of formats and outputs. We can send this document to disk, to email, fax, Google Docs if configured, and automatically launch them. For our example, we're simply going to press the Save button, which will create a PDF version of the report. If we bring up our File Explorer, we'll see the PDF version of that report. If we double-click, it will launch it in our PDF viewer. As stated earlier, Barista also makes a copy in the document archive. For more information, see the Public Docs Barista Document Output Object and the other document on interfacing reports with the Barista Document Management System.
Thanks, Sam. Let's move on and talk about some new features we've added to the database. We've added new full-featured views. A view acts like a table, but its records are derived from an SQL select statement. A standard view, the views that we've had up until now, can consist of select with one or more tables joined by a where clause. The new full-featured views can consist of arbitrarily complex SQL select statements, including things like nested selects, outer joins, unions, group by, order by, etc. It does require a configuration setting in the Enterprise Manager. A standard view would be select customer number, last name, first name, address from customer where state equals New Mexico, for example. A full-featured view can be really complex. It could be a multi-page SQL select statement. And this is where you would find it in Enterprise Manager, where you would go and enable it under the Information tab for the database, and under Miscellaneous, down here we have this checkbox for full-featured Create View. So if you check that box, you'll be able to take advantage of this new functionality that of course is not backward compatible to old versions of either Pro5, Visual Pro 5 or BBJ. One other new feature we've added is the ability to save and or load queries in the Enterprise Manager, SQL queries. Enterprise Manager has a simple query tool for executing or testing queries against your data. Those queries can now be saved to a text file and loaded at a later stage. Some of the benefits are that it maintains any formatting that you might have had in place for that SQL select statement, and it makes it easier to reuse common queries that you wish to run against your data at a later point in time. Here's what it looks like. From our standard SQL tab, we have the SQL statement, which we can now save to disk. Lastly, I want to touch on one of the most exciting parts about BBJ 11.11, that is we've improved the performance. One very major project we've undertaken is we've refactored the whole string processing within BBJ. In particular, any projects that might have made great use, or any programs that have made great use of the substring and concatenation, will see significant performance gains. There's also a reduction in garbage that is generated, and therefore garbage collection times will be improved as there'll be less garbage to collect. There's also a new programming caching algorithm that's been introduced in BBJ 11.11, and we've improved the concurrency in file access right across the system. BB Jasper utility has had some performance improvements, and of course the standard caveat applies. Your mileage may vary depending upon your usage of these features and functions within your application. You could see some tremendous boosts in performance when you upgrade to BBJ 11.11. So let me recap the BASIS advantage. We're offering the complete technology stack from the language through to development tools to some fairly sophisticated and complete building block components. So the utilities, there are ERP solutions, and now with the newly added dockout object, you can even have access to the whole document output subsystem that comes with Barista from your legacy applications. Speaking about Advantage, we have a new Advantage magazine coming out next month, so look out for it. It'll be talking about a host of these features that we've covered in today's session, as well as some other features we didn't have time for today. So look out for that. We'll have both electronic and hard copy versions of the next Advantage magazine. We'll be talking about how to add style to your BBX web applications with custom CSS, and we'll also be delving a little bit more deeply into the data replication functionality. Let's take your questions.